All right, welcome to a Deal Structure Sunday with myself and veteran Link Urban from North Carolina. Welcome, buddy.
Hey, buddy, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. Thanks for jumping on with me again.
Sure.
Just for some context for the viewers, Link, there may be new viewers that haven't seen, but Link's done 20-something deals and counting and has been with the community since what year, Link?
May of 17.
May of 17. Yeah, because you just attended your 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, sixth event.
Yeah.
Sixth QLS event.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is gonna be fun. So,
Yeah.
so the reason I wanted to do this particular deal for the viewers to know is we're an open book, and this deal, Link lost a buyer at first and had to refill it. So we're just gonna walk you through it. And as I always say, just for a disclosure, it's not that you're gonna hear us do this and go, got it, I know how to do these now, great. It's just to expose you to some of the things that go on with the deal. So for starters, Link, on the screen here, and if the viewers could not read ahead, we couldn't get a screen share going other than this way. So this is a sandwich lease, correct? It says?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The source with the FSBO, it says, do you recall back then? Because this deal was had when? Like in 17?
Yeah, I signed this buyer or the seller up in July of 2017.
Amazing. Okay, so FSBO, do you remember if you called them yourself personally or any kind of nuances around that?
I called them myself, and they had it on the market this time for 3 or 4 months. The market was a little softer then, and it was an outlier. It was a little bit more expensive house, kind of out in the edge of the mountains of North Carolina. So it wasn't the most desirable place, but it's certainly not a bad place. But yeah, they had it at FSBO, and they had actually had it on the market 2 years before that and couldn't even get a bite. And then they had a tenant in it for a while, and the tenant left the house in shambles. They paid either 1 or 2 payments over a 9-month period. They finally got them evicted, and that's about the time I reached out to them, and they're like, "Oh God, please, somebody take this thing away."
Yeah. So, okay. So that begs one question. I'll just think of things as we go, and I'm sure you will, but a lot of times, still to this day, Link, students will say to me, and people see these videos will say to me, why would you put on an agreement if they couldn't sell it for 2 years? And so I don't know if you have a comment on that. We think it's obvious, but
Absolutely. I mean, we're marketing to not only the market of people that would have possibly bought it traditionally, but we're marketing to an entirely set of different buyers. I mean, we're marketing to the other 70 or 80% of the market, whatever that is now, or 90, whatever it is, people that need a little bit of time, that need a little bit of help, that they still deserve a chance, but they need some help. And it's just a much, much, much larger pool of potential buyers.
and growing, right? As of you and I doing this in October of 22, it's growing the amount of buyers that need our help because of interest rates.
It's growing, and it's not slowing down. And I mean, as you can see, this is a $550,000 house too.
Right. And I want to make this bold statement about the market. If you're watching this and you are not yet in any shape, form, or fashion dipping your toe in the creative financing market, it's going to go past you. This is the best time in my 31 years I've seen all these criteria, sort of variables, really coming together in the market. Okay, so Link, in a sandwich lease, we don't talk sale price, we talk what's left for debt and what are we promising the seller, because as that debt goes down, that's our benefit. We're just promising the seller X amount. So it looks like we got debt here of like 356 and change, and equity of 110 grand promised to the seller.
That's exactly right. And that's as soon as I transition from the price, that's all I talk about. I explain it then, and that's all I talk about. So there's never a gray area.
Right. So in their head, they probably have if you add those up, the 456 or 7 price, but we go right to, hey, we're promising you the 110. That's your net, period.
That's exactly right. They actually, at that time, we thought the payoff was 360, and I had told them 470. But what that means, your contract is going to say $110,000. So from here on out, we're talking about $110,000 of equity.
Right. And just so, again, if they're new, we have in the QLS Home Study Program, Module 11 has all the agreements. In the sandwich lease agreement in section 13, and I've looked at it so many hundreds of times, has right in there, it says the price is, and it's blank, and we put in the equity there, the 110.
We put in C13B, which says the equity amount previously discussed. Yep. Plus the payoff at time of closing.
Plus payoff of the underlying debt in section 8, A and B. All right. So you went off, let's go buyer one, way back then. You went off and sold it to a rental buyer for $549. And it looks like, walk us through these numbers here on the left side of the page for the viewer.
Sure, absolutely. Well, what's interesting is just as a little bit of an additional backdrop, this is a deal that I was traveling to the first of those events that you talked about. And Nick actually talked to them on the phone and closed them on the deal, did a buyer's meeting on the phone while I was en route to Rhode Island for my first QLS in 2017 in October.
Well, okay, cool you brought this up because, again, if you're a new viewer, you don't know, like, Lane's been an associate, high 6 associate since then. So while he was traveling, Nick, my son, who helps all the students with, he's a buyer specialist and he just has it down pat like no one else. He helped that deal happen. So that's what we're referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, walk us through the monthly, Link.
Sure. So the down payment was $15,000. I actually collected $15,000 plus the first payment plus our small admin fee at the signing. So the $15,000, and then the monthly payment on this house was $2,186, and the monthly payment from the buyer was going to be $2,500 a month, which gave me $314 a month spread. Now this buyer only stayed there 5 months, is why it says $314 times 5 months, $1,500.
What, Link? Remind me what happened after just 5 months. I honestly forget.
Well, they were great family, great buyers. He was working for he got hurt on his job, broke his back on his job, and they just weren't going to be able to afford to live in this price house. The wife was on disability. They had a child with a special needs child. And then when he hurt his back, they weren't going to be able to afford or qualify for a house in this price range.
So a lot of life things going on big time.
Yeah.
And that happens. I guess in hindsight, and I'd like your opinion on this, because again, it was so long ago. In hindsight, if together you and I had really looked for a stronger down payment, a stronger buyer, we may not have had that issue, but it is what it is. And we're going to show you how to pivot, right?
Oh, that's absolutely right. And you know what? I mean, I had that inkling. I talked to them several times, and he always said something about my wife's not working, she gets disability, and my child gets disability. I mean, it's just being around people for a while. I'm getting just this. I see they've got a red flag. They're not waving it, but I see they've got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay. So did you have to evict them or they just leave amicably? I forget.
They left amicably. They left the house in nicer condition. We discussed, I mean, because there was no gray area. I mean, they asked, well, what happens if we change our mind? I said, don't move in. I mean, that's our money. If you change your mind, you're forfeiting any money you've paid between now and when you change your mind. So
right.
If you think you are, don't do this.
Right. So we got 16 and change. And then from the day they left till you got it refilled, and we're going to move to the right side of the page, buyer 2. Do you remember how long that was?
It was about 5 months. And I had several buyers, but they just weren't great buyers. And I didn't love any of them. You know, there were self-employed, and they kept questioning me, well, how much am I going to have to report on my income? I'm like, yeah, I'm not, this isn't a fit. Like, there were several along the way. I just was pickier the second time.
Yeah, well, we live and learn. As many deals as we've done, like you heard me say at the QLS live event, I think us in the community, we've surpassed, 1,000. Yet I still get deals in as recent as last night with 2 of our coaches that I go, oh, this is an interesting one. So there's always twists we can learn from.
Yeah.
Buyer 2, then down payment for payday 1.
Well, actually, this was kind of a unique one. She had fine credit, but she was self-employed, but she didn't have a big down payment. But she was the best buyer I had. I met her face to face. We talked. I really liked her, and I decided that I was going forward. So as we go down this, you'll see where she added. She only had $5,000 up front, which is way low. It's less than 1% of our normal. But since I already had the 15, and I saw her need for the house like this, and it was perfect location, like it made a lot of sense. And you probably don't remember it, but you and I discussed this at the time about what a good fit she was.
Link, I'm trying to remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So no, I don't remember that one.
I understand. Well, I want to
okay,
highlight.
so was that
like the fact that it's very abnormal to let somebody move into one of these houses for 5,000 with 5,000 up front.
Right.
I want to make sure that everybody understands that that's very, very abnormal.
Right. It's abnormal with our model.
Yep.
So 2186 obviously didn't change. You
Right.
bring 24, 25 in, but that payday one, you're adding 1,075 every month, right? That's how it got
Yep.
up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So that's how we added it up. So out of the first 5,000, then plus the 1,075 a month, she was paying 3,500 a month. 2425 was rent. 1,075 was an additional down payment amount. So even though she was paying 3,500 a month, as far as my calculations go, we had 239 spread over 42 months was $10,038, then plus the 1,075, which actually applied to payday one.
Yep, absolutely. And then, you must have been super comfortable because some of this is gut. I mean, Nick will teach for the viewers to know, Nick will teach you how to do it and what the pros and cons are. But Link, you must have been super comfortable with, okay, I like their income. She can handle this payment, clearly.
That's exactly right. Plus the other thing is she's looking at a $550,000 house. She needs to be able to prove to the mortgage company that she's going to be able to handle the $3,500 a month payment. I mean, because that's what ultimately it's going to be. Now it's
Right.
actually, when we closed out, it ended up being closer to 5,000, and she was still able to qualify. But I wanted to get her up closer to where she should be able to qualify, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't going to be a problem.
Yeah. And then when you went to cash this out, which cashed out, what, about a month ago as of this filming?
Yeah, a month ago.
You had a nice principal pay down on that original loan of roughly 356,000. It went down by 696 and obviously that's scaled, but we're rounding.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
like 33 grand. Am I reading that?
That's right. It was 696 a month. That was as of that when I actually did it. It actually went up, but yeah, 48 months is 696 for a total of 33,408.
Now, before we hit the final, because I could have called the HUD up, the settlement statement, but your number of 60 something grand was right on that HUD. But before I do that, if I have to ask you this, unless you said it, and that is the buyer. Everybody always wants to know, how come the buyer had that much income but couldn't go get a loan? Do you remember what their scenario was?
Yeah, she was, and still to this day, she pays attention, but she doesn't do it till 30 or 45 days late. Like she's one of those people that will eventually get whatever she needs to done. And she she actually had an accountant, and she was reporting her income, but she let her credit go to where it wildly fluctuated. I mean, it would fluctuate 150 points. I mean, I remember when we did the tenant screening, it was really high, and they're like, well, do you think? And I said, just, yeah, she's told me it fluctuates a lot. And then we checked it again 6 months later when I was pressing her to find out where we were going to be in the mortgage process. And it was way lower, like down in the low 600s. So
Wow.
it fluctuated wildly because she was poor paying her credit card every month that she lived out of.
Okay, well, you said some really cool nuggets there for the viewer. One being you checked in with them and did a check. Hey, we're coming up on our date. How you looking? And you got proactive with that, and that was probably live and learn too. So that was good.
Yep.
On your end to do that, and good for the viewers to know we're setting the buyers up to win. And I know I've said this literally probably hundreds, if not 1,000 times on these videos, and that is there are a lot of mentors. There's a lot of programs out there. I know who we compete with in the education space, and they are screaming from the rooftops that they don't want their buyer to cash out, that would be a good thing. And it might be good for them, but it stinks for the buyer. And Link, you are all over it to get them done.
Seller. It stinks for the seller too.
Yeah.
Depending on the model, if they're in a situation where they're waiting on the buyer to get to the finish line, if you set the buyer up to fail, then you're setting your seller up to fail that you made an agreement with. That's from my perspective anyway.
Well, yeah. What's one of our values, Link, in the community? All transactions at the highest level of integrity.
Right.
You do what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
All right, so we wrap this deal up with payday three, all paydays rather, with 132 grand. But you got a nice wire of almost $68,000 after all those pivots and bopping and weaving. Not too shabby.
Yeah. And it's interesting actually on the HUD, because this mortgage company wanted to show the down payment. We actually showed, at 132,574, they had about 110,000. We had $22,000 more than the seller had on the HUD.
Yeah, exactly. So people always ask that. They always go, well, aren't the sellers going to be upset? No, the seller got what Link promised them they would get.
And never deviated, and the house was never a problem. All the payments were made. Everything that needed to be handled was handled and taken care of in a timely manner. So they were happy. They, it's like, well, gosh, you sure made a lot. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because the sheet's not up anymore, but you did an original term of 36. Obviously, this took like 5 years. The seller was fine going along as you went along,
Yep.
and gave you what you needed.
Yep. Actually, what they came back early this year and said, look, we need to buy a house. We're going to buy another house at the end of the summer, late fall, and we really want this one taken care of by then. And so I said, yeah, that's no problem. We'll get it done. So
That's why I kind of helping the buyer.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything I didn't hit on this one, like, that comes to mind? Because you were in it for so many years. I don't want to miss anything that might be a nugget for the viewer or a lesson.
I had, there was one thing that came up with an HOA. An HOA was very unhappy. This woman had like put a freestanding pool out beside the house. And I said, remember, I told you anything that you do in this neighborhood has to get approval, but it's a really nice, I said, I didn't ask you how nice it was. I told you when you moved in that you needed to, and she was mad. And then she came back. I'm really sorry I was mad. I know you told me that. I was frustrated that they wanted me to make it. I said, I understand. I get that. I'm just telling you that this was part of the agreement. Like, it goes back to communication. Like, one of the things, our business is a communication business. And if that's the only thing I would tell anybody, if you don't know how or don't like to communicate with other people, this might be something you need to give stronger consideration to. Is it something you really want to do? But other than that, communicate with your buyers, communicate with your sellers like they're business partners, because, hey, they are. And like everything will go smoothly.
I love
and
it.
Even when it doesn't go smoothly, you can uncover and fix the problem.
Yeah, and that's another value of ours. I already hit one. We only have four or five values, and that is clear and blunt communication, no gray area. It doesn't mean you have it's not a way of communicating rudely. It's a matter of being clear, and Link does an awesome job at that. So that's sweet. Link, the only thing I can think of is you've been to so many events, you and a handful of people, probably all of them, except for the original launch event in 16. What would you say to the viewer, whether they've watched 150 of these or whether they're brand new, as far as the importance of getting to the Wicked Smart Summit in March? Because you just attended your whatever, 6th or 7th QLS alone, never mind the other events.
You know what? We always when we finish with final thoughts, I mean, I always say the same thing. I feel kind of bad that I haven't come up with something new and exciting, but I mean, I always get some nuggets. There's always something that I learn that's going to improve my business and improve my situation, my scenarios with my buyers and my sellers every single time. Like there's too much sharing of information, and there's just so much knowledge in this community and so much support. And it at the events, you just get the opportunity to see the people, catch up. And I don't know if it's going to be virtual or live this year, but either one, there's still a ton of information and a ton of sharing, and you'll meet people who may become accountability partners, who may spur you to be successful, that may, whatever it may turn into some other networking type situation. I mean, I always meet somebody who goes, hey, can you help me? I'm sure, I'll be glad to help you. Like it always happens. And Steve and I have been communicating more since the last one. Even though we're kind of going different directions, we're still communicating. We've started recommunicating. So, yeah. I know that's not an exact specific answer, but I mean, there are way too many nuances and layers to the value of what it brings. So I couldn't stress enough how important it is.
No, I appreciate that. And you brought up Steve, and I'll wrap up on this note. And I'll actually give the viewers a link to the event site and give you 50% off. So hang in there with me for a second. Steve brought up yesterday, Link, on a company meeting, how you specifically and the coaches and other team members all practice another value, which is team over me, meaning there were literally people in the room who we were just all helping. The associates were helping, you were helping, in light of getting them to a deal. It was crazy. He mentioned another person, Mike, in an Uber ride to go to dinner, doing a deal for someone. So we're all about getting deals done. We're in the trenches, is what we always been screaming about. It's not, you're never buying a program unless you're buying a lifestyle. I would suggest, I invite you to all to go to Wicked Smart Summit, wickedsmartsummit.com. That's the event. Now, as of the time of this filming, it's not that populated yet. We don't have all the speakers and everything yet, but you will see that grow and grow. And I want to give you a 50% off. And I've got to tell the team the URL I'm about to give you because it's not even created. And that is smartrealestatecoach.com/50 off, 50 off. Link, thanks again, buddy. I look forward to seeing you in person, but I'm sure we're going to do many deal structures together. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much.